What's going on, everybody? It's EricRayweather back here, and in today's video I'm going to be talking about all of the things that are still missing from Madden 19. I'm pulling these from my comment section over the past couple weeks, dropping all of the new Madden 19 videos. I've seen a ton of people asking about this, about that, tons of different things. So I'm just going to go through, I compiled them all together, and I'm just going to talk about the things that didn't make it into Madden 19 or have not yet been confirmed, which if they haven't been confirmed by now, it pretty much means they're not going to be in the game at launch. And, things that hopefully we're looking forward to for next year, that some of these things can get in the game, but I figured let's just put it all together because for some of you, some of these are make or break things, and you might not want to get the game if some of these things aren't implemented yet and you're still unsure. So I felt like this was an important video to make. So I'm going to split it up into each different category to make it simple, gameplay, franchise, MUT, things like that. So let's just get right into it. Gameplay wise, things that are still not in the game. Real physics, something I've seen asked a bunch. We do have real player motion this year, which the real player motion technology does make the players move more realistic. It makes weight and momentum matter more. They plant their feet in the ground when they cut now. They use, like I said, weight and momentum on their cuts. But still, we don't have real, quote-unquote physics yet, and no sports game really does. I mean, it's really impossible almost to have a sports game currently that doesn't rely heavily on animations. I know a lot of people hate that, but we're just not there yet. Eventually, I think we probably will get there. I would assume so, but we're just not there yet. So yes, the player motion technology is better. The players do move more realistic than they have before, but we still don't have real physics in the game yet, and I honestly wouldn't expect that anytime soon. Might have to lower your bar on that a little bit because we're just not there yet, honestly. Moving along, RPOs, or as some of you may know them, run pass options. The Eagles, Nick Foles, they ran this down people's throats to a Super Bowl last year. You see a lot of teams use it. You'll probably see a lot of teams use it a lot more this year after the success the Eagles had. Those are still not in the game yet. And to my understanding, those aren't in the game yet because something like that, I mean, yeah, they could have rushed and put it in the game, but when you add something like that into the game, it's very easy for people to break things gameplay-wise. So you don't want to rush a feature like that into the game that could easily possibly be abused. You need to make sure it's done right and that the defensive AI is smart enough to handle it. So yes, I want that in the game. I know a lot of people do, but if their reasoning for not putting it in the game is because they didn't want to rush it and have it possibly be something that got abused, then I'm okay with that, honestly. And I definitely think that's going to be high on their list for Madden 20. It would have to be, especially if it continues to take over the league again this year. Moving along, trick plays like the Philly special, those aren't going to be in the game. Again, same kind of thing as the RPOs. Yes, they could have probably rushed that, coded it into the game, but if the logic of the defense isn't smart enough to handle some of those plays, it could wind up being something that's easily abused. So, I mean, you have to weigh it out. Would you rather it be in the game but then be something that can easily be abused, or would you rather wait maybe an extra year and have it implemented the right way? So, obviously we want it in the game, but those aren't going to be there this year. Hopefully next year they're able to put those in. And the last thing that I've seen asked about quite a few times is a timing-based catch system, which we currently don't have. If you throw the ball to your receiver now, you hold down any of the catch buttons, rack catch, possession catch, whatever, you hold it down as soon as your quarterback throws the ball and they catch the ball. A timing-based catch system would be you have to press the button when the ball is getting right near you. So you have to actually time it so that your receiver animates as the ball is getting to him. Whereas if you were to hold the catch down early, he would animate early and miss the ball. That's not currently in the game. That's definitely feedback we've given the devs that we think should be in the game. That kind of creates a skill gap. It may be a little bit harder for the casual player, but you should kind of have to time your catches. They changed that with the defense last year to where you had to time your catches, so eventually we hope they bring that over to offense, but that's still not going to be in the game for Madden 19 on offense. So those are the gameplay issues that I saw mostly. Now we're going to move on to the franchise mode. One of the biggest things is the Pro Bowl. That's still not going to be in the game, unfortunately. For those of you that don't know, the reason they gave for this last year was because it requires a lot of memory to be able to download each individual team helmet for one game, whereas a typical game you only have to download 2 helmets, the 2 teams that are playing. For the Pro Bowl, you have to be able to download all 32 helmets because you're potentially going to have a player from each team in the Pro Bowl. And because of the graphic quality that the game is at now, it honestly takes a lot of memory to do that. Now, I know some people may say, well, that's just a really sorry excuse, and maybe it is. I don't know how difficult something like that actually is, so I'm not going to judge it. But I know that if it was that easy, they would have it in the game because they know it's such a big issue and people want it. So if it was that easy, I don't see why they wouldn't just have it there in the game. Hopefully eventually they can get that, because I mean, having franchise mode without Pro Bowl is kind of silly at this point, but still not going to be in the game for Madden 19. Practice jerseys, you're not going to see that in Madden 19. You're still going to see full pads, full uniform in practice mode. I don't think this is as big of an issue with a lot of people, but I saw it asked about. There's still no practice jerseys. Kind of more of a minor detail in my opinion, but hopefully that's something they can add to franchise next year, or just the game throughout, but not going to be in Madden 19. And last but not least, for franchise mode, something I've seen a lot is tougher contract negotiations. From what I've seen and, you know, what we've read, they have mentioned nothing about contract negotiations, so I don't expect that to be any different this year. It's going to still be the same old kind of vanilla contract negotiations that we have. But I think they know that that is a big request from the hardcore franchise guys, so I would expect that to be somewhat high up on the list maybe for next year. But, you know, franchise did get, you know, a nice step forward this year in my opinion. But there's still those few things that they need to nail out with the upcoming year too, and I think contract negotiations would fall somewhere in there, but we're not getting it for Madden 19. Moving on to MUT, really I only have two big things for MUT, and while I can't say for sure that these aren't there, because even at EA Play, you know, no one's really allowed to look at MUT or anything like that, but these are two such requested features that if they were there, EA would have mentioned it by now, and they haven't, so I think it's safe to assume that neither of these are there. Practice mode for MUT, I mean, they know how long we've been asking for it. If it was there, they would have 100% mentioned it by now. But as a sidebar to that, something they did do that kind of like meets halfway at least, is they have the All-Legend and All-Elite team in the game now, like for play now. So you can use them in the regular practice mode. You have the All-Legend team, the All-Elite team, which will help you somewhat simulate more of a MUT experience if you're trying to practice with the best players or practice against an All-Legend defense, because you know when you get on MUT, you're not going to go up against the Seahawks. You're going to go up against people that have All-Elite players and All-Legend players on their defense, so you want to practice against that. Well, at least you have something to kind of simulate that now in the regular practice mode. So while we don't have an official MUT practice mode, we do have something that kind of meets us halfway on that, so I think that's at least a decent compromise for the most part. And the second thing for MUT is Play a Friend MUT Squads. Again, one of the biggest requested things. They have mentioned nothing about this. Nothing at all. So, if this was going to be in the game, they would have mentioned it. I would expect this to probably get updated into the game 100%. There's no way they're going to let it go the whole year without that being in the game. I just could not see that possibly happening, but the fact that they have mentioned nothing about it yet would lead me to believe there's no way we're getting it in the game at launch. I think that's just a fair assumption to make at this point. Moving along to presentation, we got a few things here. So, sideline players, I've been asked about this a lot. Sideline players are still the same. They're still generic. No names on the jerseys, unfortunately. We'll say that the sideline interactions look a little bit better. You see a little bit different interactions when, you know, players run out of bounds or stuff like that. Those look a little bit better, but I mean, overall, the sideline is still very bland. I would hope this is high up on the presentation list for next year, because this is one of those things that's kind of just going a little too long. They need to update the sideline players for sure. Moving along, a more in-depth halftime show. Now, they did add a new halftime show to the game this year, so kudos for that. They did add a new halftime show. Definitely a step in the right direction, but they definitely need to build that out and go more in-depth, because some people are asking, well, are we going to see replays of other games around the league? No, you're not going to see that. They said currently they don't have the technology in the game to be able to pull plays from games that technically didn't happen, right? Because when you're playing in franchise mode, yes, you see the score of other games that are happening, but the games aren't actually really taking place on the system, so they can't pull replays from those games yet. But that's something they need to really work on for next year, because if they can add that into the halftime show that they implemented this year, then you got a really nice halftime show and something that people would be really happy with. Moving along, dynamic weather. Again, they've mentioned nothing about this. They know it's something people want, so the fact that they have mentioned nothing about this, I mean, probably not going to be in Madden 19. I've literally heard not a single word about dynamic weather. Moving along the scoreboard, this might be the #1 complaint I saw over the past 2 weeks. I honestly didn't know how much people really loved the scoreboard, but it is going to be the same scoreboard that you saw last year. I kind of fall more in the side of, you know, if it isn't broke, don't fix it as far as the scoreboard goes, because, I mean, typically the only time you really look at the scoreboard is, like, to check the time, you know, in crucial situations. No one really just stares at the scoreboard and says, like, wow, this is such a great scoreboard. Like, I get it. It makes the game feel new. It makes the game feel fresh. It's such a small detail that makes the game feel like a new game. So it's definitely a valid complaint. But we're getting the same scoreboard this year. Seeing all of the backlash about the scoreboard, I would 1,000,000% expect them to give you the best scoreboard you've ever seen next year, because I don't think they've ever gotten this much backlash over a scoreboard. So definitely next year I would expect you're going to get a pretty crazy scoreboard, because they didn't realize how much of an uproar it would cause by not changing it this year. And last but not least, under presentation, tattoos. I guess this falls under presentation. Maybe some would consider it graphics, but I'm just putting it under presentation. People keep asking me, is Odell the only guy that still has tattoos? Where are the other player tattoos? You're not going to see tattoos on every player. You're probably never going to see that in Madden. The reason being is because you can't just put tattoos on a player without licensing the rights from the tattoo artist. The NBA games have gotten in big trouble for doing this in the past. It's not worth it. You can get in a lot of trouble over it because that is technically their artwork. So you have to think, there's some players that literally can have tattoos on them that could be from 5 or more different artists on them, right? And you've got so many players in the league. It would take an extreme amount of time. It's just really tedious. It would take so much time, so much money, just resources that you wouldn't believe. If you really wanted to track down every player and get every tattoo, you're talking about something that probably couldn't even be done in a 1-year cycle for the game. It would be something that would take years to get every player's tattoo. And honestly, I think if you knew just how tedious and how time consuming and how much money went into that, you would probably prefer them to put their resources into more important things. But of course, for players like Odell, he was a cover athlete. He's one of the biggest stars in the NFL. For players like that, yes, they will go get the rights for the single, elite players, because for them it matters more for their player likeness. But for each and every little player in the game, no, you're probably never going to honestly see that. So don't expect it this year or anytime soon. Graphics wise, not much to say about graphics. I think the graphics take their normal step forward that they always do. The lighting, the sweat, all of that is better this year. But the one complaint I've seen is, are the players' faces going to have emotions? Or are they just going to look the same? You're not going to see that this year. That's not in Madden 19. You're still going to see kind of the generic facial expressions, unfortunately. That's something that hopefully they can work on for next year. When a player gets hit, his face should look like he just got hit. If a player's catching a deep ball, his eyes should be really big, like he's, getting ready to catch the ball. Players should look tired sometimes or out of breath, and they just kind of look generic every play. So no, that is not in Madden 19, unfortunately. Hopefully they can get that soon. And last but not least, we're going to jump into the equipment. So they did add a lot of new equipment this year: new cleats, face masks, and gloves. But the two that I've seen complain about the most, obviously, one is still mouthpieces. Those still are not in the game as far as I know. They have mentioned nothing about it. They know how big of a complaint it is, so if it was in the game, I think they would have 100% mentioned it by now if it was going to be in the game. I don't know if the mouthpiece issue is similar to like the Pro Bowl helmet issue or what, but that's still not in the game. And the one I've seen a lot recently is the turf tape for Alvin Kamara. I wouldn't expect that to be in the game at launch. I even asked the dev specifically about that, and he said that they haven't had turf tape in the game in years. And rightfully so, because no one has used turf tape in a long time until Alvin Kamara. It was kind of like an outdated thing, but he's bringing it back. I would expect in a title update maybe that he would get that, because it is such a big thing. It's like Odell with the tattoos. Like if Alvin Kamara continues to rise and become more of a superstar, they're going to get him his turf tape, because that's a big part of his player likeness. But don't expect it in the game at launch, because it's not even currently coded into the game. So yeah, that's all the main things that I saw. If you got any other particular questions, drop them in the comments below. And as always, I will see you guys next time.